What's up, YouTube land? Welcome back. If this is your first time, welcome. All right, this video is going to be all about retaining walls. And you can see here, this is a retaining wall. I'm going to talk about what a retaining wall is, what the purpose of a retaining wall is for, and why we did one here on the back of this project called the Nook. If you haven't seen any of the other videos in the Nook playlist, check them out. This is a 3-container, 2-bedroom, 1-bath home build in the mountains of Colorado. And we're going to discuss the grading issues that we had with this property and why this retaining wall is now here, where did all this rock come from, and how we were so lucky enough to use it. Let's get started. All right, as you can see here, or if you're not even familiar with retaining walls, this actually is almost completely finished. This is a completed retaining wall. All of this rock was here on site, and most of it was discovered during our excavation and our site work periods. This rock actually was blasted out of the ground when we went ahead and did our excavation for our foundation and also for our driveway, when we had to get through about our first 100 to 200 feet of the driveway, of a 600+ foot driveway. In order to be able to remove dirt, we had a lot of rock we had to deal with. And that was here, that was down there, that was everywhere, honestly. So what we did was we actually just brought in some dynamite and just blasted the bazoozers out of the soil. Is bazoozers a word? I'm not even sure. But what was left over were piles, just massive piles of rock all over this property, as you can kind of take a look at. And the biggest pile back here was kind of an issue for our backfill. We got a lot of it out of the way with our equipment, but at the same time, in order for us to finish grading and finish the driveway and then finish our backfill after we got our utilities, everything hooked up, this rock was in the way of us being able to actually physically push dirt back into the back end of our property for our backfill. And what we ended up doing was deciding, for 2 reasons. One, we had grade issues on the back of the property. I'll explain that here in a second. And 2, we got to do something with this rock. Some of it actually is going to be repurposed up in the front of the property to make a really big natural landscaped patio. And then I decided, well, we got to have a retaining wall. So instead of buying more material, let's reuse what we've got here on this awesome 3-acre property. So that's what we did. We had to move this rock before we could finish backfilling. So we moved this rock right here. Now, why is it right here? Why did we do a retaining wall right here? Let's talk about that for a second. If you can take a look at where I'm standing from the back of the property, and you look kind of this way towards the back end of our property line itself, we've got a pretty good grade going. And it's going in the wrong direction for water management purposes. And that is a problem, because when we go to backfill our property, there's the top of our stem wall, but our grade was really, really high once we excavated and then backfilled. We had dirt, if we didn't do this retaining wall, that would have ended up about this high on the actual property. That can't happen. We have to have this property set into a compacted area. So we needed to push more dirt this way. Well, the further we push the dirt this way to get this level and actually get a positive slope going away from the property, code tells us we've got to have at least a 6-inch fall in the first 10 feet. Or we have to have some version of that slope in a shorter distance, as we would have here, about 7 feet from the back of the property, to get that positive grade so water's just not constantly pooling against the foundation. We do have an exterior perimeter drain at the footing, but we still need to have that positive grade away from the house above our stem wall. So that's what we ended up doing, is moving the dirt this way to get a grade, but then we have to hold the soil back and more water from getting up against this and pushing dirt and everything else up against the house. Bringing in this rock was, as we lucked out, a really great way to do a retaining wall, because we can use this, and most of this is granite, to hold up the soil And it kind of has a good, kind of architectural look to it at the end too, which I like, instead of just using concrete or precast material of some sort. So We use all this rock to basically hold up that soil behind the property. Now, the next step is, we've now got this part finished. We'll finish backfilling over here and continue to move the rock around the corner to the back end of the property and finish up front, because we're still gonna have some of those grade issues on the back end of this property where the main door is. We also have to make sure that the water that does percolate below the soil doesn't get down to the bottom of this retaining wall and then actually create that heave functionality that we don't want. What happens is that water gets down in there and actually can create, because soil expands and contracts, especially this kind of soil, and it can push against that rock to a point where the rock can actually come loose at some point. There's a threshold of water pressure that it can't hold anymore. And I've done videos on hydrostatic pressure. It's not quite that, but we don't want this water just pooling on the back end of this wall. So we're gonna have a perimeter drain that's gonna catch some of that. Well, it's more like a drain tile wall. And it's gonna catch some of this water and it's gonna run it out one way or the other. So most of it that goes down gets away from the wall as fast as possible.
The more bigger ones at the bottom.
Yeah, we want a big base. Yeah. Exactly.
So big one, whatever you can see.
That's the purpose of a retaining wall for this property. That's the purpose of a real retaining wall. Pertaining or retaining? It's pertaining to something, right? That's the purpose of a retaining wall in general. Is we're holding back soil. So it really is a structural member on some sort of build, any sort of landscaped area. That is the purpose of what a retaining wall is for. All right, guys, that's a wrap on this video. If you did enjoy this video, please do me a big favor. Hit that thumbs up before you leave this video if you've made it this far. I really appreciate that. If you haven't subscribed, I would greatly appreciate it if you guys did subscribe to the channel as well. You'll get more information on all things pertaining to home building and real estate, and you'll also be able to watch more of the Nook playlist as we wrap this project up and gear up for some more container builds coming to you soon. So keep that in mind, and I'm gonna get back to, well, I'm gonna actually wait for the machines to show up because we got some more site work to do. So until next time, guys, as always, keep building.
It's heavy.